This presentation is part of the McMaster Demystifying Medicine seminar series. Hello everyone. Our understanding of cardiopulmonary anatomy has changed dramatically over the course of history. Let's take a look at some developments that helped us get to where we are today. The 17th century was a period of discoveries in cardiopulmonary anatomy and physiology. In England, William Harvey continued his research on circulation, but was complaining that his avant-garde views made his clinical practice suffer. Thanks to King Charles I, Harvey became a warden at Oxford University, where he established the Oxford Group, along with 5 of his closest colleagues, Thomas Willis, Richard Lauer, Robert Boyle, Robert Hooke, and John Mayo. Thomas Willis was primarily interested in the blood vessels of the brain and is known for his discovery of the circle of Willis. Our friend Richard Lauer, meanwhile, identified the lungs as the site of arterialization of venous blood, which today we call oxygenation. The two Roberts, Boyle and Hooke, realized that the air around us is not massless, featureless entity, but rather a compressible fluid that exerts pressure. They also explored the properties of vacuums, which don't allow for combustion or the transmission of sound. Finally, John Mayo understood that only a portion of air is required for life, and that some change in its gas content takes place as a result of combustion and circulation. That's it for the Oxford Group, an intelligent bunch that taught us about air pressure and composition and the workings of circulation. Later in the 17th century came another important scientific group. In the 1660s, Robert Hooke became the curator of experiments for the Royal Society in London. In one experiment, he showed that the act of breathing was not necessary for blood to be arterialized in the lungs as long as they were supplied with fresh air. However, his ideas did not catch on as they were too advanced for his time. No progress on the theory of breathing was made for another 100 years until Joseph Black rejected the phlogiston theory of combustion. The phlogiston theory of combustion was a theory stating that there's a fire-like element called phlogiston that was contained in combustible bodies and is released into the air when the object is burnt. What's left is dephlogistonated ashes. German physician Georg Ernst applied this theory to breathing and said that venous blood contains phlogiston, which is expelled to air during breathing. As air becomes more and more phlogisticated, it loses its capacity to support life and combust. The phlogiston theory was eventually rejected by Joseph Black with his famous experiment showing chalk lost weight and gave up gas when incinerated. This is the same gas that was present in expired air, which he called fixed air, and is now known as carbon dioxide. By careful weighing, Black showed that gains and losses in weight by burning were opposite to those predicted by the phlogiston concept. Joseph Priestley, a minister born in England in 1733, became inspired to study air after moving nearby a local brewery. The brewing process produced fixed air, which we now know as carbon dioxide. Interestingly, his work with fixed air led to his invention of soda water, which he tried to use as a cure for scurvy. In 1774, Priestley published a work entitled Experiments and Observations on Different Kinds of Air, where he described his experiments that led to the discovery of what we now call oxygen. In one of these experiments, Priestley converted mercuric oxide to mercury and oxygen by using a burning glass. By weighing the mercuric oxide, he measured a drop in weight after production of the gas. In this gas, flames burned brightly and a mouse survived twice as long as in air. He termed this gas dephlogisticated air. Priestley found that when he placed a sprig of mint in fixed air, it could become dephlogisticated air, in which mice could now survive and candles remained lit. This is also how he stumbled upon photosynthesis. The next scientist to further our understanding of atmospheric air was Lavoisier. Antoine Laurent Lavoisier was a French chemist and widely considered to be the father of modern chemistry. In 1783, he read to the Academy his famous paper entitled Réflexions sur la phlogistique, which was a diatribe attacking the phlogiston theory of combustion. In cooperation with mathematician Priestley de Laplace, Lavoisier synthesized water by burning jets of hydrogen and oxygen in a belt jar over mercury. The quantitative results were good enough to support the contention that water was not an element, as had been thought for over 2,000 years, but a compound of two gases, hydrogen and oxygen. The next person to carry the torch from Lavoisier was Humphrey Davy, an English prodigy who was published by the age of 20. Davy trained in one of the first modern institutes to combine clinical care and basic research, the Medical Pneumatic Institute, where he became director at an early age. Davy's primary contributions to the field of respiratory physiology were his observations on the effects of different gases on the body, most notably nitrous oxide, aka laughing gas. His observations laid the groundwork for the use of gaseous anesthetics during surgery, though his suggestions were not clinically tested until 50 years after their publication. The second major contribution Davy made was the spirometer, a device that can measure the amount of air inspired or expired. Spirometers work by using a counterweight suspended in mercury which contained a gas. As the subject breathes in and out of it, volume changes can be measured. Davy was again ahead of his time, as his design of the spirometer is used in clinical settings to this day. By the end of the 18th century, our knowledge of atmospheric gas was almost complete. From the phlogiston theory to the discovery of oxygen in the spirometer, the foundations for understanding gas exchange have now been set. We hope you enjoyed this brief history lesson and thank you for listening. If you want to learn more, please click follow and subscribe. Check out our Facebook page or visit our website at demystifyingmedicine.ca.